Alright, so I was listening to Jim Cramer talk about the market and the idiots that contribute to all the volatility, and I kept on hearing these about these big companies and how people are still buying into it. It's like, okay, at what point do people not realize that there's no point in investing in a company if it's not improving on something, right? If they're not going to come out with a new product, that new product that isn't there isn't going to be there to lift up the popularity of the company, right? So power, popularity, you gotta have both, right? That is what the market follows: power, popularity. And if a company doesn't have the potential for both, don't invest in it. It's just like a person. You know, a woman may look pretty, or a man may have some power of some sort. The fact is, you need both in order for a company to really thrive. And I don't see that in most companies nowadays. The big ones, anyhow. Especially when you discover how ugly they are inside. Right? That they're willing to turn and betray you and the rest of the country. See, the most important company in the world actually goes to religion. But religion doesn't hold stock exactly, right? Because guys like me actually tried to mitigate the amount of influence that religion had, because really we had to separate God from this world. And we wanted to do that because it was a humble thing to do. Because we had to concede the fact that we are suffering from the doppelganger paradox. And then the most important company in the world would be the government. If the government fails, sure, another one can be put back up, but if you invested in a set of policies and people to defend those policies and make them popular, right? The policies are power. The politicians represent popularity. If you lose one, you may be able to keep the other, but that, I think, is mostly if the politicians disappear and the policies stay, which is what our country was built around. So if we lose the policies because of certain politicians, what do you think is going to happen? Right? That's why bearish markets come about, because people realize they got to pull back. So when they put in better politicians that restore proper policy, there's peace. And this same thing applies to companies as well, because companies give company to the whole company. So if you have companies in the country that are trying to overthrow the founding principles of the West, right? They're in competition, and they're just, in their mind, retrograde. It doesn't matter if they're developing new power. They're still violating the principles that allowed power to be developed in the first place by people who are adhering to the original company, which would be religion. So religion comes before politics. politics comes before economy. If you don't got your politics right, the economy is going to be smothered like a little baby. But if the little baby tries to get rid of the policies, it's just like a little child ignoring what their parents taught them. Their guardians and their parents. All right, so God is our parent, government is our guardian, and we, the citizens, are the economy trading with one another. And we are supposed to have the ability to speak freely so that we may find those that we wish to associate with, as well as to assemble freely with those that we associate with. And there is no limit to that. Yet people are treating as if there is. And they're attacking other people for choosing not to be around other people, or even having disinterest in them and saying, I'm not interested in your way of life, because it rejects the original way of life. A good example would be like how it's good to be a moral person, but it's also good to be practical. But is that really what people are talking about? I may confuse people a little bit with that. Let me say minimalism, only doing what you're supposed to do, and not doing anything more. And then utilitarianism, right? You combine minimalism and utilitarianism, and you get a stable way of life, right? That's the way. You can put in some romanticism in the middle if you'd like. I don't mind that, so long as it doesn't get in the way. Because the original romanticism isn't even about sex. It's just about getting stuff done without doing other stuff that doesn't need to be done. And that is its own experience. That's like, wow. That was simple, but powerful. It may be simple. That's also powerful. And the moment you try to make it something else, it becomes less of both. That's why we don't like people who are crooked, and then why we associate Satan and death with a sickle or a scythe. Because people choose a different way, right? They go in a different direction than what worked before, right? Technology is not supposed to warp. It's not supposed to warp reality. Okay, you're supposed to have redundancy, minimalism, utilitarianism, right? Only having what you need or needing what you have, and only having what you need and needing what you have. And the range in which you have experienced reality, when you need to widen that, it's okay to widen and increase, but you're only adding more utility. You're not getting rid of the minimalism, only doing what you need to do. You're adding to your technology, you're not taking it away. And you're still adhering to the original way of life. And you realize that if you move away from that, you're taking a serious risk. So what are companies doing today that piss me off? they're getting involved in politics. Instead of focusing on just building power, they want to take away everyone else's power. Pretty simple why I don't like them. Why I don't like Google and YouTube. They've grown too powerful, and so they think that they can sacrifice power. That isn't even theirs by contract. Right? People treated them as if they were a public institution. Right? Because everyone felt that the internet was public, except for the explicit claim that we have certain policies here. Here are examples of what we don't want. And we figured it out early on, instead of, retrospectively saying, these people are getting too popular. Let's not have them anymore. When you've been tolerating them for decades. You just realized you didn't want them on your site? Okay, so let's bring up the DACA, or just the dreamers. The concept of a dreamer. Let's take away race. Let's take away gender. Let's take away all these physical attributes and just apply it to the internet and certain websites. Okay, if DACA becomes law, right, the same principles that are in DACA should apply to all citizens of the United States as well. And everything that is in the United States. So let's treat YouTube like America. And I'm a foreigner to YouTube. If I go in, but philosophically, those people didn't like me because of my viewpoints, but they tolerated me for as long as I was there. They told me, come. And they didn't tell me to turn away based on the appearance of my ideology. And I was just being explicit. I've presented my words. This is what I believe. They said, say what you believe. Just don't lie, cheat, steal, harass, assault, rape, kill. Or promote anything that pushes toward that. And I'd be like, sure. So long as no one does it to me. And I just walked in to YouTube. And what happened was that turns out that they were not as tolerant as they originally claimed. That's false advertisement, because apparently tolerance is a product on the market nowadays. It always has been, but it's what it is. People have been shifty on it. It seems that people are not so, if there's one factor to always be looking at, it's tolerance. Because that determines the whole range of everything in principle. And what can exist in between. And apparently I don't exist anymore in their moved range. Now that's called moving the goalposts. It's also called false advertising. When I made a contract with YouTube, they did not say that they were going to interfere with my ability to interact with other YouTubers. And constitutionally speaking, everyone thought, oh, technology is the only thing that determines what we can and can't do, aside from the explicit policies that exclude people of a certain quality, right? Popularity, power, right? It's about controlling that. And so YouTube, Google, Twitter, Microsoft, definitely not as much. I actually like Microsoft. They're doing pretty well. Bill Gates may have come out with some really strange perspectives, which I think could have hurt Microsoft because he still has stock in Microsoft and can still influence Microsoft. Even though he's not the head of it anymore, he still can. Right? Right? People still act like he is anyway, so it's like he's still attached. It's like if your mom and dad get a divorce, the kids still think that you're together. Something close to that. Not exactly. Or, it's like a parent and their child. Microsoft was Bill Gates' child. You really think he's no longer its daddy? Right? So he needs to watch what he says. He does need to say that he is in the dialogue, and that because he's in the dialogue, trying to find out where things can get done. I mean, I would like to know his belief system so that I can adhere it if he ever decides to turn on me and use my information against me. This isn't about necessarily freedom of privacy anymore. Like, if you're going to go out there and try to enforce your beliefs, I think you should be required to articulate what those beliefs are and why. I think that needs to become law. I really do. Because otherwise our markets are going to be unstable more and more, because liberals and conservatives are just trying to sort through one another. And there's a lot of false advertisement going on there. At least on the part of the liberals, because they know that they got to appeal to the straight normals. Now, my understanding of religion is that there will be some illuminating, right? We'll still be living in a world of darkness, but people will be a little bit more illuminated. That's scary for everyone, because I have discovered the truth, and I can demonstrate it. And so that's going to affect the market too. I'll try to be very careful as I move forward, putting together this information, which is one of the reasons why I think, well, I'm not going to say anything about that, but I do believe that people are being dishonest, and if we're actually going to adhere to both the spirit and the letter of the law as it exists in the Constitution, that we respect a person's right to free assembly. And the term assembly is used everywhere. Do you know what it means to assemble? Right? If a girl and I, assemble in a theater together and then, continue peacefully on the back row, begin to kiss, having consent, getting consent, of course, being necessary to have there be peace, because that's part of contracts. And then we just we both know that we're taking a risk with one another in finding out what the other is comfortable with. Certainly, it would have been wiser to speak about it in the first place, which is what everyone should be doing, instead of hiding their agenda. And I try to be true in my thinking. I try to have a noble spirit, and I try not to do anything that diminishes my noble spirit. And I try only to do that which would magnify it, or to give it course. And so I would be true to that girl if I felt comfortable to begin with, and I would go all the way. However, because I know the theater does not allow that, because they actually enforced it in the past and they've stated we don't want people to be doing this, yet they still don't kick out people who start kissing in the seats. It's like, I'm confused. Why is there no true justice? Why is there duplicity? See, and this is what causes certain theaters who try to enforce their policies unevenly to be less popular. Even though, of course, sex is one thing, just making out is another. But it's true. This needs to be resolved. This needs to be resolved. That people need to have a set of rules that people read, that are there, that are constant, that are universal, so that everyone knows where everyone is, and that we can all choose to go someplace else or continue to go there. And we should be allowed to vote with our feet, because the free market is the reason why America is so great. Because we get to choose who we want to be with, what religion we want to belong to, what political party we want to belong to, what company we want to be loyal to. What individuals we want to invest in, basically. Because that's what it comes down to. And I want everyone to start picking sides. However, the dialogue is about helping people be able to cycle through those people that they don't necessarily want to deal with, constantly as they are. So the dialogue is about being in the light of day, knowing what people believe, and then separating future conflicts as they are revealed in the moment, and then not having to deal with that for the rest of your life because you're not living with that person, or giving them your faith, giving them your vote, or giving them your money. Because that's capitalism. And that's what America is supposed to be, and everyone else can go to hell. And we kill savages, and we kill traitors, and we kill kings. We kill god emperors, and we kill gods. That is the tradition of the West. Just thought I would give my opinion on the markets today. And why I think it's so stupid that people invest in something that is dead. Why? Right, okay, so another reason why you would invest in a company is if you believe that not just that they're going to innovate something new, but if they're going to go back on the technology that they developed and not expand upon it and improve upon it. If it's not an improvement, then they failed you and their popularity will disappear. But if their popularity disappears, but they still have a good product, except for the policies and the reasons for those policies, then like you can go and talk to those people and try to sort them out. And then maybe they get their popularity back. But this is why we have laws against defamation, because we want there to be stability. We don't like libel. We don't like lies, because we want the truth. We want true power. We also don't want to be left in the cold with true power, because then that power is very difficult to use. It's like having a boner, but no woman to keep you from feeling the cold after being, exposed. Right? It's not good if the woman intentionally lets go. That's not good on her part. If the goal is indeed to make there be progress in a minimalist, utilitarian way. Now, if the man does the same thing, then he's just hurting himself. And this is an issue. This is the doppelganger paradox as it exists between men and women, and that is another issue that we have to deal with. Because who is responsible for disposing of the other or just not being committed? And we all know who that is. Men just like to confuse themselves. They like to be confused. Because it's a false warmth. They're going in circles because they just want to be held. And they don't want to admit it. Because it's their greatest weakness. And it's also the greatest weakness of every customer. So if you want to know good customer service, you better understand love, you better understand religion, you better understand politics, and you better understand economics. Technically, when I say love, I'm really referring to technology. Because if it weren't for technology, love would not exist. Think about it. You know it's true. Love is really just two things. Magnification and promise that there will be more. Nothing else. Now, I can go deeper into the details as to where love comes from, but in the end, it's still all just technology. And it's slowing down, folks. So even though, like, Trump is in power, Republicans are in power, and we all want to glorify capitalism, and yeah, let's do that. Let's get it done. We believe. But just understand that we're going to hit another bump. Or I should say, more like this. Because I got a feeling that we got to go down in order to go up. In order to let go of false traditions in both science and religion. But of course, there are people in certain places that won't let that happen. Yeah. So, hold to the rod, the iron rod. 'Tis strong and bright and true. The iron rod is the word of God. 'Twill safely guide you through. I'd rather side with power. I'd rather be shooting off into oblivion beyond the event horizon and no longer be of this world. Because this shit doesn't make sense. And if I can't make sense of it, I'm pretty sure they can't either. And that's another thing you gotta look out for.